Welcome back to Workplace 30. We're on to 3.2, weighted and trim means, and we're starting with example 2 on page 125 today. So here we have a teacher who has two different math classes, 25 in class A and 20 in class B. So we want to find the arithmetic mean for both. So go ahead and you can do that now. You should get the following answers. So remember that the arithmetic mean is just found by adding up all the values and dividing them by the amount of students or the amount of values in each set of data. Then we're going to calculate the mean for the two classes combined. So these need to be weighted because the two classes have different sizes. So just taking an average will not give us a true mean. So in order to weight these, we need to find the percentage of kids that are in each class. So we have a total of 45 students. So class A has 25 of the 45 students, which is 56%. Class B has 20 of the 45 students, which is 44%. Next we need to, so that was step number 1. Step number 2 is we need to multiply the mean by the weight and add these two together. So if we take class A, the mean was 68.8%. We're going to times that by the weight, which is 0.56, because 56% in decimal form is 0.56. Then we're going to add that onto the mean, which is 76.75 of class B, times 0.44, which is the weight for class B. So follow BEDMAS. First do what's in the brackets and then add these values together. So we'll get 38.5 plus 33.77. So your total answer will be 72.3 would be your weighted mean. We just put a little W beside it because that would be your weighted mean, not your arithmetic mean. So here we're on to discuss the ideas. Josh said that he had an easier way to find the overall mean. He said that you could just add the means for each class and then divide them by 2. So that would be taking a mean of a mean. Will his method work? So actually Josh's method would not work. If you'd go and do that, you'd get it to be slightly higher than the actual mean because more weight was put on the smaller class, which actually had better marks. So no, that's not a good way of doing it. 2, are there any outliers in the data? If there are, recalculate the separate class means using the trimmed data. So here we could go ahead and find outliers. Class A, we have an outlier would be 32% and 37%. Class B would be was 298%, which would be outliers. So if we find the trim mean of A, so the trimmed mean of class A would equal 70, and the trimmed mean of class B would equal 76.6. Then we can go ahead and take the weighted mean of these. So we'd get 70 times, now our value here that we're going to multiply by is going to be slightly different than from before because we took out certain pieces of data. So that's a side note calculation. So our side note is down here. If you take 37 as our new total, and since we actually remove 4 values, because remember with the trim mean, if you remove an outlier from the bottom, you need to take one away from the top also. So we took away 4 values from each. So we get 16 out of 37 is 43%, which we plug in as a decimal of 0.43. And the other weight would be 57%, which we plug in as 0.57, and we come up with a weighted mean of about 73%, which is actually very close to our original weighted mean. Example 3 on page 127, we have Francis earned the following marks. We know that each mark is worth a certain weight. So each written assignment is worth 5%, which would be 0.05. So we times that by 0.05. Each quiz is worth 10%, so 0.10. Presentations are worth 20%. Written assignments, again, 5%. Second quiz is 10%. And the final exam is worth 50%. So we can calculate the weighted mean of all of these, and you should come up with a weighted mean of 81.5%. Now, how did I get this? I took each value here, turned it into an actual value. So I would say that this is 80, this would be 70, and so on. Times it by your value, and then add all of these together. Then we have mental math. So I want you to figure out if you have 60% of the final mark and 40% of the final mark, you want to end up, you earned an 80 on the first, worth 60%, and a 70 on the second, worth 40%. What is the final mark? Go ahead and give it a try. So check your answer with mine on the board. Last but not least, on page 131, you can do assignment questions number 3 to 8.